The kitchen smelled like rosemary and garlic. Betty Rogers stood at the counter, chopping vegetables for the pot roast she'd been making since noon. Tom's recipe, the one he used to prepare every Sunday before the stroke took him 7 years ago. She was humming along to Nat King Cole's The Christmas Song, playing softly from the radio when her phone buzzed on the counter. She wiped her hands on her apron and picked it up, expecting another forwarded meme from Linda. Instead, it was a text in the family group chat. From Paula. "Mom, don't even think about coming here for Christmas. We need our family time. You're too needy and we need space. Don't call, don't text. Just leave us alone for the holidays." Betty's breath caught. She read it again, then a third time. Her thumb hovered over the screen, waiting for the typing bubbles that would indicate someone, Travis, Derek, anyone, was responding. Surely someone would say something. Surely Travis would defend her, or at least ask Paula what was going on. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. The silence in that group chat felt louder than any words could have been. Betty set the phone down carefully, as if it might shatter. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the pot roast, enough for 6 people, the way she always made it, hoping someone might drop by, and suddenly felt foolish. Pathetic even. Needy. The words stuck in her throat like a bone. She picked up the phone again and reread the message. This time she noticed what wasn't there. No apology, no explanation. No, "I'm sorry, but we need to discuss something." Just cold rejection, delivered via text message like she was an ex-boyfriend being dumped. Betty walked to the kitchen table and sat down heavily. The Christmas tree in the living room twinkled with lights she'd spent 3 hours putting up last weekend. She'd bought presents for Emma and Lucas weeks ago. The expensive art set Emma had been asking for, the dinosaur encyclopedia Lucas wanted. They were wrapped and waiting under the tree. Outside, snow was starting to fall. Cleveland in December always looked like a postcard, especially from this window. Tom used to stand right here, coffee in hand, and say, "Another day in paradise, Betty." She wondered what he would say about this. Her phone buzzed again. For a hopeful second, she thought maybe Paula was apologizing, or Travis was finally speaking up. It was Linda. "Maggie, did you see what Paula just wrote? Call me." Betty stared at her sister's message but didn't respond. She couldn't. Not yet. Because once she talked about it, once she said the words out loud, it would be real. She turned off the stove and covered the pot roast. Then she went upstairs to her bedroom. Tom's side of the bed still made perfectly, even though he'd been gone for 7 years, and lay down in the dark. Sleep wouldn't come. Betty lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, watching car headlights occasionally sweep across the plaster like searching beams. She kept checking her phone, pathetically, hoping for some sign that this was a misunderstanding. That Paula would text, "OMG, Mom, I'm so sorry Derek grabbed my phone and wrote that as a joke." Or Travis would call and say, "Paula's having a rough day, don't take it personally." But there was nothing. At 2 a.m., Betty gave up on sleep and went downstairs to make tea. While the kettle heated, she opened her phone and started scrolling through old messages. Not because she wanted to torture herself, but because she needed to understand when things had changed. When had she become needy instead of mom? She found a text from Paula from 3 months ago. "Hey, Mom, quick question. Did you send this month's payment yet? Emma's dance recital fee is due tomorrow and I'm cutting it close." "No, how are you doing?" "No, hope you're feeling better," after Betty had mentioned her arthritis was flaring up. Just the money question. She scrolled further back. Travis from 6 months ago. "Mom, need to borrow $500. Car insurance went up. I'll pay you back next week, promise." He never had paid her back. Further back. Paula again. "Mom, can you help with Lucas's tutoring? It's $200 a month, but he's really struggling with math." Betty had said yes immediately. She'd said yes to everything. She kept scrolling, going back a full year. The pattern was obvious now, glaring at her from the screen in bright pixels. Every conversation, every phone call, every visit, they all revolved around money. Help with this bill. Emergency with that expense. Just this once that happened every month. When was the last time either of them had asked how she was doing? Betty set down her phone and noticed her hands were trembling. She thought about Paula at 8 years old. making Mother's Day cards with crayons and construction paper. "I love you, Mommy. You're the best mommy in the whole world." Hand-traced hearts decorated with glitter. She thought about Travis at 12, crying on her shoulder when his first girlfriend broke up with him. "You always make everything better, Mom." When had those children become these adults? Or had she simply been too blind to see it happening? The kettle whistled. Betty poured water over a chamomile tea bag and sat at the kitchen table. Through the window, she could see her reflection, a 62-year-old woman with gray hair she'd stopped dyeing 2 years ago, wrinkles around her eyes that Tom used to call smile lines, and an expression that looked lost. "The kids will be there for you," Tom had said in the hospital, his voice weak but certain. "They'll take care of you." She'd believed him then. She'd believed it for 7 years. Betty picked up her phone one more time. She typed out several responses to Paula's message. "I'm sorry if I've been too much. I just miss you." Delete. "I don't understand. What did I do wrong?" Delete. "Please, can we talk about this?" Delete. Finally, she typed just one word. "Okay." She stared at it for a full minute before hitting send. It felt like surrender. It felt like defeat. But strangely, underneath all that, it also felt like something else. Something she couldn't quite name yet. Freedom, maybe. Betty didn't sleep at all that night. At 6 a.m., she was back at the kitchen table with her laptop open and her coffee going cold beside her. She'd learned Excel from Tom back when he was managing the household budget before his death. He'd been meticulous about tracking every expense, every investment, every dollar in and out. "Numbers don't lie, Betty," he used to say. "They just tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not." She opened her online banking and started downloading statements. 5 years seemed like a good place to start. That was when she'd set up the automatic transfers shortly after Tom's death, when Paula had first mentioned she was really struggling, and Travis had said his entry-level salary barely covered basics. Betty created a new spreadsheet. In the first column, she typed recipient. In the second, amount. In the third, purpose. In the fourth, date. Then she started filling it in. Automatic monthly transfers. Paula Rogers, 5,560 months, equal 90,000. Travis Rogers, $1,000 60 months, equals 60,000. Betty's hand paused on the mouse. $150,000 in regular payments alone. But she wasn't done. Emergencies, itemized. Paula's transmission repair, $3,000. Travis's apartment security deposit, $2,000. Paula's root canal, not covered by insurance, $1,500. Emma's medical bills, ear infection complications, $4,500. Travis's emergency flight to college friend's wedding, $800. Paula's washing machine replacement, $1,200. Travis's car loan cosign, he defaulted, Betty paid, $8,000. Paula's down payment help for house, $20,000. Travis's laptop for work, $1,500. Paula's credit card emergency, $3,000. The list went on and on. Gifts, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, just because. Emma's American Girl doll collection, $600. Lucas's gaming computer, $1,200. Travis's iPhone, $900. Paula's designer purse for her birthday, $450. Travis's concert tickets, $300. Emma's dance costume and fees, $800. Lucas's hockey equipment, $550. Betty added another column. Total. She selected all the cells and clicked Sum, $189,300. She stared at the number, rechecked her formula, counted the cells again. The number didn't change. $189,300. In 5 years. Betty pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the floor. She walked to the window, then back to the laptop, then back to the window. The number was still there, glowing on the screen like an accusation. That was most of Tom's life insurance payout. That was the money he'd worked for 42 years to earn. The money he'd saved carefully, invested wisely, left specifically for her security in old age. "This will keep you comfortable, Betty," he'd said in the hospital, squeezing her hand with what little strength he had left. "You won't have to worry. Promise me you won't worry." She'd given it away, almost all of it. And in return, she'd gotten a text message telling her she was too needy to come to Christmas. Betty sat back down and created one more column. Investment value if saved. She plugged in a conservative 6% annual return. The spreadsheet calculated $267,000. She could have had over $250,000 right now. Instead, she had $31,000 in savings and a monthly pension that barely covered her own mortgage and expenses. Betty picked up her phone and took a screenshot of the spreadsheet. Then she opened her banking app. The automatic transfers were easy to find. She'd set them up to process on the 1st of every month, like clockwork. Reliable, dependable, just like her. She clicked on Paula's transfer. Cancel recurring payment. Are you sure? Yes. She clicked on Travis's transfer. Cancel recurring payment. Are you sure? Yes. Then she went into settings and created a new checking account, one they didn't know about. She transferred most of her remaining savings into it, leaving just enough in the original account to cover her own bills. Her phone buzzed. A text from Paula. "Did you seriously not respond to my message?" Typical. Betty looked at the text for a long moment. Then she opened her Photos app and created a new album. She titled it Evidence and added the screenshot of her spreadsheet. She had no idea why she was documenting things. Some instinct, maybe. Something told her she was going to need proof of something eventually. The call came at 2:47 p.m. Betty was sitting on her couch, pretending to read a book, but actually just staring at the same page for 20 minutes. When Paula's name flashed on the screen, her heart jumped into her throat. She let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello? Mom?" Paula's voice was tight, controlled. No greeting, no, "How are you?" "I see you canceled the transfers." Betty's mouth went dry. "Yes." "Well, you need to fix that. The mortgage payment is due in 3 days, and I'm counting on that money." "No." Silence on the other end, then, "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no, Paula. I won't be fixing it." "Are you serious right now?" Paula's voice rose. "You're going to punish us because you're having some kind of emotional breakdown. We have bills, Mom. We have kids." "So do I," Betty said quietly. "I have bills too. You have your pension. You have Dad's life insurance. You're fine." Was she fine? Betty thought about her property taxes due in January. Her own mortgage, yes. Even this paid-off house had a small reverse mortgage she'd taken out 2 years ago when Paula needed help with Emma's medical bills. Her prescription costs that seemed to climb every year. "I need to go," Betty said. "Mom, wait, Betty hung up. The phone immediately rang again. She turned it off. For the first time in weeks, months maybe, the house was completely silent. And in that silence, Betty could finally hear herself think. That evening, Betty sat in Tom's old office. She hadn't changed much in here since his death. His desk, his filing cabinet, his reading chair by the window. Sometimes she came in here just to feel close to him. Tonight, she had work to do. She Googled Elder Financial Abuse Ohio and started reading. The websites described exactly what had been happening to her. Adult children making excessive financial demands, using emotional manipulation, creating dependence, exploiting guilt. There was even a term for it: financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. Betty stopped reading and sat back. Vulnerable adult. Is that what she was? She opened the filing cabinet and found what she was looking for: a business card tucked into a folder labeled Legal, Tom's Will. Samuel Harrison, attorney at law. Tom's old friend, semi-retired now, but still practicing. Betty pulled out her phone and typed a careful email. "Dear Samuel, this is Betty Rogers, Tom's widow. I hope you're well. I need to schedule a consultation regarding some family legal matters. Specifically, I need advice about protecting my assets. Please let me know your availability. Best regards, Betty." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she went to her bedroom closet and pulled down a cardboard box from the top shelf. Inside were years of Mother's Day cards, birthday cards, thank you notes from her children. She sat on her bed and opened them one by one. The early ones, from when Paula and Travis were children, were precious. Hand-drawn pictures, misspelled words. I love you, Mommy. You're the best. Thank you for everything. But somewhere around their mid-20s, the cards changed. The messages became generic. Happy Mother's Day. Thanks for everything you do. You're the best, Mom. They could have been written to anyone. And then, in the last 3 years, most of them were e-cards. Digital images Paula had clicked on and sent in 30 seconds. No handwriting, no personal touch. Sometimes Travis forgot entirely and would text a belated Happy Mother's Day, sorry crazy day, the day after. Betty found one card from Paula, dated 2 years ago. She remembered thinking at the time that it was particularly heartfelt. Mom, you are always there when we need you. Your generosity knows no bounds. We're so lucky to have you. Love, Paula, Derek, Emma, and Lucas. Reading it now, Betty saw it differently. Always there when we need you. Not we're there for you. Not we love spending time with you. Just when we need you. She took a photo of the card with her phone and added it to her evidence album. Betty saw Travis's car pull into her driveway at 11:17 a.m. the next day. She'd been watching out the window, knowing he would come. She'd even made coffee, set out 2 mugs on the kitchen counter like this was going to be a normal visit. But then Paula's SUV pulled up right behind him. Her stomach dropped. They'd coordinated this. And through the SUV's windows, she could see Emma and Lucas in the back seat. They'd brought the grandchildren. Betty opened the door before they could knock. Both of you, she said evenly. I see. Paula pushed past her into the house without a word. Travis followed, looking uncomfortable but determined. Derek stayed in the car with the kids. At least he had that much shame. Sit down, Mom, Paula said. It wasn't a request. Betty crossed her arms. This is my house. I'll stand if I want to. Look, Travis started, running a hand through his hair. I don't know what's going on with you, but this stops today. You can't just cut us off without warning. I gave you warning, Betty replied. You told me not to come for Christmas. You told me you didn't want to see me. I'm respecting your wishes. All of them. Paula's eyes flashed. That was about Christmas, not about money. You're twisting everything. Am I? Betty met her daughter's gaze steadily. Then let me ask you something, Paula. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Not to ask for money, just to see how I was doing. Paula blinked. We talk all the time? When? I don't keep a calendar of our conversations, Mom. This is ridiculous. Travis stepped forward. Mom, I'm about to be evicted. Do you understand what that means? My credit will be destroyed. I might lose my job if I have to move suddenly and can't make the commute. Betty walked to her desk and picked up a printed copy of her spreadsheet. You make $58,000 a year, Travis. I looked up average salaries for tech support in Cleveland. Your rent is $900 a month. Where is your money going? His face reddened. That's none of your business. It became my business when you made me responsible for your rent. She turned to Paula. And you and Derek took a vacation to Cancun last spring. I saw the photos on Facebook. That's not struggling. That was credit cards. Paula's voice rose. We needed a break. You have no idea how stressful our lives are. And who were you planning to pay those credit cards with? Betty asked quietly. Paula's mouth opened, then closed. Betty turned back to Travis. You bought a new gaming computer last month, $2,200. I saw it on your Instagram story. But you can't make rent? I needed that for work, he protested. Your company provides equipment. I asked. The room fell silent. Then Paula's face transformed. Her anger melted into tears, fast, practiced tears that Betty had seen before when Paula wanted something. Mom, please, I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry about what I said. I was stressed. Derek's been having trouble at work, and the kids are expensive, and I took it out on you. She wiped her eyes. But you can't punish the kids because I lost my temper. Emma needs her dance classes. Lucas has a field trip coming up. Are you really going to take that away from them because you're mad at me?" For a moment, just a moment, Betty felt the old familiar guilt rising. The instinct to comfort, to fix, to provide. Paula knew exactly where to strike. But then Betty looked at her spreadsheet. $189,300. She looked at her daughter's tears, which had appeared and would disappear just as quickly. She looked at her son, who couldn't even make eye contact. "No," Betty said firmly. "No?" Paula repeated. "No, I won't be resuming payments. You're both adults. You need to manage your own finances." Travis's expression hardened. "Fine." He turned toward the door. "Don't come crying to us when you're old and sick and need someone to take care of you." The threat hung in the air, ugly and clear. Paula grabbed her purse. "You're going to regret this, Mom. Family is supposed to stick together, but apparently you're fine with being alone." She paused at the door, her final weapon. "Don't expect to see your grandchildren anymore. Emma and Lucas? They're done with you." They left. The door didn't quite slam, but it closed with enough force to rattle the framed photos on the wall. Betty stood in her empty living room, shaking. She could see Emma's face through the SUV window as they pulled away, confused, maybe a little sad. That hurt worse than anything Paula or Travis had said. She sat down on the couch and allowed herself to cry. Great heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep inside, somewhere she'd been pushing down for years. After a while, the tears stopped. Betty dried her eyes, blew her nose, and picked up her phone. She called Samuel Harrison's office and left a message. "Samuel, it's Betty Rogers. I need to see you as soon as possible, and I think I need to change my will." Then she called Linda. "Maggie?" Her sister's voice was warm, concerned. "I've been worried sick. Are you okay?" "No," Betty said honestly. "But I'm going to be." Samuel Harrison's office hadn't changed in the 15 years since Betty and Tom had last visited to update their wills. The same mahogany desk dominated the room, the same leather chairs sat across from it, and even the same receptionist, though considerably grayer, greeted her with a sympathetic smile. "Betty." Samuel stood when she entered, extending his hand. He was 70 now, mostly retired, but his eyes were still sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I was sorry to hear you're having difficulties. Please, sit." Betty settled into one of the leather chairs, clutching the folder she'd prepared. Inside were printed bank statements, her spreadsheet, screenshots of text messages, a timeline she'd created of every financial request over the past 5 years. "I appreciate you seeing me on short notice," she said. Samuel waved this away. "Tom was one of my closest friends. Your family." He gestured to the folder. "Why don't you walk me through what's happening?" Betty did. She started with the Christmas text and worked backward, explaining the monthly payments, the emergencies, the escalating demands. She showed him the spreadsheet. Samuel put on his reading glasses and reviewed the documents in silence. His expression grew grimmer with each page. $189,300, he finally said. "Betty, do you realize this qualifies as financial exploitation of an elderly person under Ohio law?" The word elderly stung, but Betty pushed past it. "I gave it willingly." "Under emotional manipulation and undue influence." He tapped Paula's Christmas text, which Betty had printed out. "This kind of verbal abuse combined with financial demands creates a legal pattern. How old are you?" 62. "And your health?" "Arthritis in my hands, high blood pressure. Nothing unusual for my age. Some anxiety since Tom died." Samuel made notes. "I'm going to be direct with you, Betty. If you want to protect your remaining assets, we need to act now. Your children know you're vulnerable, financially and emotionally. They're counting on it." Betty's throat tightened. "What do you recommend?" "First, a new will. Currently, everything goes to them equally when you pass. Correct?" She nodded. "We change that. Make your estate conditional based on behavior, or redirect assets to a trust, or even to charity if you choose. I also recommend establishing college trusts for your grandchildren that neither parent can access." Can I do that? It's your money, Betty. You can do whatever you want with it. He leaned forward. Second, I want you to document every interaction going forward, every call, text, visit, date, time, content. Keep a log. You think they'll escalate? I've seen this pattern before. Adult children who view their aging parents as ATM machines. It rarely improves without intervention. If they escalate to threats or harassment, we file for a protection order. Protection order against her own children. The thought made Betty dizzy. Third, Samuel continued, consider naming someone neutral as financial power of attorney in case you become incapacitated. Not them. Maybe your sister Linda? Betty nodded slowly. And if they try something legal? Then we fight. But Betty? His expression softened. I know this is painful. These are your children. But right now, they're not acting like your children. They're acting like creditors who've lost access to their credit line. Betty left his office 2 hours later with a thick folder of documents to review and sign, a recommended therapist's name just in case, and a strange feeling she couldn't quite identify. It felt like hope. For 2 weeks, Betty heard nothing from Paula or Travis. The silence was eerie. No calls, no texts, not even an angry voicemail. She checked her phone obsessively anyway, feeling guilty relief each time there was nothing. Linda called daily. How are you holding up? I don't know, Betty admitted during one of these calls. Part of me keeps waiting for them to apologize. Part of me is terrified they will because I don't know if I'd be strong enough to say no again. Then don't answer right away, Linda advised. Take time. You don't owe them an immediate response to anything. On Thursday evening of that second week, Linda dragged Betty to a grief support group at the community center, the same center where she and Tom used to take ballroom dancing classes. I'm not grieving, Betty protested as they walked in. Aren't you? Linda asked gently. About 12 people sat in a circle. The facilitator, a kind-faced woman named Carol, welcomed them. When it came time for Betty to introduce herself, she found the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I'm Betty. My husband died 7 years ago, and I'm having trouble with my adult children. The stories that followed shocked her. She wasn't alone. 3 other women had similar experiences, adult children who saw them primarily as sources of money. One man's son had stolen his credit cards. Another woman's daughter had forged her signature on loan documents. The hardest part, said a woman named Ruth, who was 73 with white hair and fierce blue eyes, is accepting that the children you raised aren't the adults they became. You keep hoping they'll change, go back to being the sweet kids they once were. But sometimes they don't. What did you do? Betty asked. I changed my will, left everything to a scholarship fund in my late husband's name. When my daughter found out, she didn't speak to me for a year. Ruth smiled sadly. Then one day she called and apologized. Really apologized. We're rebuilding now, slowly, but it took hitting rock bottom for her to see what she'd become. And if she hadn't apologized? Ruth's smile widened slightly. Then I'd have peace knowing I didn't reward bad behavior. Either way, I'd be free. Free. The word resonated. Betty left the meeting with phone numbers, email addresses, and the understanding that setting boundaries wasn't cruelty. It was self-preservation. She also left with Ruth's friendship. They made plans for coffee the following Tuesday. That night at 11:47 p.m., Travis called. Betty was already in bed, but not asleep. She let it ring twice before answering. Travis? You happy now, Mom? His words were slurred, thick. Background noise suggested he was at a bar. You got what you wanted. We're gone. Travis, where are you? Are you okay? I'm fine. Better without your judgment. A crash in the background. Someone laughing. Better without... The line went dead. Betty sat in the dark, heart pounding. She opened her notes app and typed. November 28th, 11:47 p.m. Travis called, intoxicated, hostile, hung up abruptly. She was documenting everything now, just like Samuel had instructed. Sunday morning arrived cold and bright. Betty was on her front porch with coffee, wrapped in Tom's old cardigan, watching chickadees at the bird feeder. She'd started enjoying these quiet moments. No expectations, no demands, just the world waking up around her. Then both cars pulled into her driveway. Paula's SUV first, Derek's shadow visible in the driver's seat. Then Travis's Honda. They emerged simultaneously, walked up her driveway in careful, measured steps. A united front. Betty's instincts screamed, "This is a performance." "Mom," Paula said softly when she reached the porch. "Can we talk? Please? We've been thinking a lot and we want to make things right." Betty studied her daughter's face. The anger from their last encounter was gone. This was a different approach, humble, conciliatory. "Come in," Betty said. They settled in the living room. Derek spoke first, which was interesting. He usually let Paula handle everything. "Betty, I owe you an apology." He clasped his hands between his knees. "I should have been managing our finances better. I shouldn't have let Paula rely on you so much. That's on me." He's taking responsibility to make Paula look better, Betty realized. Clever. Travis leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Mom, I've been doing some thinking too. I've been irresponsible with money. I see that now. I'm going to make changes." They seemed so sincere. For a moment, just a moment, Betty wanted to believe them. "What kind of changes?" she asked. Paula brightened. "We thought maybe we could work out a budget together. You could help us learn to manage money better. You and Dad were always so good at that." "Yeah," Travis added eagerly. "Like maybe you could help me set up automatic savings, show me how to track expenses, that kind of thing." "And you think that would help?" Betty asked. "Definitely," Paula said. "And look, Mom, about Christmas, I was completely out of line. I was stressed about money and took it out on you. It was wrong. We want you there. The kids miss you terribly." Betty sat back, observing them. They were good, very good. But something felt off, like watching actors who'd rehearsed their lines but couldn't quite nail the emotion behind them. "So you want to reconcile," she said carefully. "Yes!" Paula's eyes lit up. "We're family. Family works through things." "And the money?" There, just the briefest flicker crossed Paula's face, a micro-expression of calculation. "What about it?" Paula asked. "Would you want me to resume the monthly payments while we work on this budget?" Paula and Travis exchanged a glance. Derek suddenly found his shoes very interesting. "Well," Paula said slowly, "I mean, we can't just switch everything overnight, right? Maybe a transition period. You could reduce the amount gradually while we get on our feet." Betty stood and walked to the window. She could see her reflection in the glass, a 62-year-old woman who had almost been fooled again. "How much?" she asked, her back to them. "Maybe half?" Travis suggested. "Just until I find a cheaper apartment. Maybe 3-4 months." "And you, Paula?" "The same. Just until Derek's situation stabilizes. He has some job interviews coming up." Derek nodded enthusiastically. "Really promising opportunities." Betty turned to face them. "No." "Mom," Paula started. "No, I'm not giving you any more money. Not half, not a quarter, nothing." "But we just explained," Travis protested. "You explained that you want a transition period, a few more months of money while you get on your feet. And then what? Another crisis? Another excuse?" Paula stood abruptly, the mask cracking. "So what? You're just going to abandon us?" "I'm not abandoning you. I'm refusing to enable you. There's a difference." "Semantics!" Paula's voice rose. "You have money, Mom. You have Dad's life insurance, your pension, this house. We're struggling." "You're not struggling," Betty said quietly. "You're mismanaging, and you've been using me as a backup plan instead of learning to budget." Derek finally showed some spine. Unfortunately, it was to defend the manipulation. "This is unbelievable. After everything we've done for you, what have you done for me?" Betty asked directly. "Be specific," he faltered. We visit you. We include you in the grandkids' lives." "You mean you used to?" before I stopped paying. And you're using them now as leverage. Travis grabbed his keys. You know what, Mom? We came here trying to fix this, trying to be adults about it. But you're being stubborn and selfish. Selfish, Betty repeated. I'm selfish for wanting to keep enough money to pay my own bills, to have security in my old age? You're not even that old, Paula snapped. You're 62. You'll probably live another 30 years. You don't need all that money just sitting there. And there it was, the truth beneath all the tears and apologies. They weren't worried about their own survival. They were worried about their inheritance. Get out, Betty said quietly. What? Get out of my house. Paula's face flushed red. Fine, but don't expect us to come running when you need help someday. Don't expect us to visit you in some nursing home. Don't expect us to care when you're sick and alone. I wouldn't dream of it, Betty said. You've made it clear our relationship is transactional. No money, no family. I understand perfectly now. Travis was already at the door. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Paula stopped at the threshold, her final weapon ready. The kids will forget you, you know. Emma's already asking why you don't love her anymore. In a few years, you'll just be some old lady they barely remember. Is that what you want? The words hit like physical blows, but Betty kept her face neutral. If that happens, then I'll know I raised children who taught their own children that love is conditional on money. And that will tell me everything I need to know. They left. Not quite a slam, but close enough. Betty stood in her empty living room, heart hammering, hands shaking. Through the window, she could see Emma's small face pressed against the SUV glass, confused and sad. That hurt worse than anything. But Betty didn't run after them. Instead, she picked up her phone and texted Samuel. Meeting happened, got worse. Proceeding with all legal changes. His response came quickly. Good. Proud of you. This is the hard part. It gets better. Betty wasn't sure she believed him, but she'd come too far to turn back now. Christmas came and went. Betty spent it with Linda's family. It was nice, but hollow. Every time Linda's grandchildren opened presents, Betty thought of Emma and Lucas. Every laugh reminded her of what she was missing. But she survived. Then on January 3rd, Samuel Harrison called. Betty? His tone made her stomach drop. I need you to come to my office. Today, if possible. What happened? Just come. I'll explain in person. An hour later, Betty sat across from Samuel as he slid a legal document across his desk. She stared at it, not comprehending at first. What? Her voice came out as a whisper. What is this? Paula and Travis have filed a petition claiming you're mentally incompetent and need a legal guardian to manage your finances. Samuel's voice was controlled, professional, but she could hear the anger beneath. They're seeking to be appointed as co-guardians. The room tilted. Betty gripped the edge of the desk. They what? They've submitted statements claiming you've been acting erratically, making irrational financial decisions, showing signs of dementia or cognitive decline. Betty's hands shook as she read. Subject exhibits paranoid ideation regarding family members. Irrational financial decisions inconsistent with previous behavior. Social isolation and withdrawal. Inability to manage daily affairs. This is insane, Betty breathed. I don't have dementia. I'm fine. I know that. But look at this. Samuel slid another paper across. They have a doctor's letter. Richard Patterson, M.D. Betty scanned it quickly. Based on detailed consultations with the patient's children, I have significant concerns regarding Mrs. Rogers' cognitive function and decision-making capacity. I've never seen this doctor, Betty said. I haven't been to a doctor in months except for my regular checkup, and Dr. Chen said I was fine. This isn't your doctor. Dr. Richard Patterson is someone Derek knows from his gym. He's never met you. He's written this letter based solely on what Paula and Travis told him. That's legal? It shouldn't be, but it happens. That's why we're going to fight this aggressively. Samuel leaned forward. Betty, listen to me carefully. They're trying to gain control of your assets by declaring you incompetent. If they succeed, They'll have legal authority over your finances, your medical decisions, potentially where you live. Do you understand? Betty couldn't breathe. This wasn't about monthly payments anymore. This wasn't even about the Christmas text. This was about her entire life, her autonomy, her identity, her right to make her own decisions. "Can they actually do this?" she whispered. "Not if we act fast. I've already scheduled a hearing for January 12th. That's 9 days from now. You'll need an independent psychiatric evaluation. I have an excellent doctor, Dr. Rachel Winters, who specializes in competency evaluations." "What if—" Betty's voice cracked. "What if the judge believes them?" "They won't. But we need to be thorough. The burden of proof is on them, but we can't be complacent. Betty," he paused, making sure she was looking at him. "Prepare yourself. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. But we will win." Betty left his office in a daze. She sat in her car in the parking lot for 10 minutes before she could trust herself to drive. When she finally got home, she called Linda and broke down completely. "They're trying to declare me incompetent," she sobbed. "They're trying to take everything. Not just the money, my mind, my right to make decisions." "Oh, Maggie," Linda's voice was fierce. "Then we fight. You're staying with me this week. You shouldn't be alone." "I can't believe they'd—" "I can," Linda said grimly. "They've already shown you who they are. Believe them." Dr. Rachel Winters' office was warm and professional. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, tissues within easy reach but not ostentatiously placed. Dr. Winters herself was in her 50s, with kind eyes and an air of unshakable competence. "Mrs. Rogers, I understand this is stressful," she said after they'd settled in. "I want you to know that my job isn't to take sides. It's to assess your cognitive function objectively. Can you tell me in your own words why you're here?" Betty explained everything: the Christmas text, the money, the confrontations, and finally the guardianship petition. Dr. Winters listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. Then the evaluation began. Memory tests. "I'm going to give you a list of words. Listen carefully, and I'll ask you to repeat them back to me later." Betty aced it, recalling all 15 words in order 20 minutes later. Problem solving. "You have $1,000 to budget for a month. Your rent is $400, utilities are $150, groceries are $300. How much is left?" Betty answered immediately. $150. Executive function. Complex scenarios requiring planning and decision-making. Betty navigated them all clearly. Personal questions. "Walk me through your decision to stop the payments to your children." Betty did, referencing her spreadsheet, the timeline of escalating demands, the final Christmas text that had been the breaking point. "Do you ever doubt your decision?" Dr. Winters asked. "Every day," Betty admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm being selfish, if I'm punishing them for being stressed or struggling. Let me ask you this." Dr. Winters set down her pen. "If a friend told you her adult children demanded $2,500 per month, threatened to cut off access to her grandchildren when she said no, then filed a petition to have her declared incompetent so they could control her money, what would you tell her?" Betty was quiet for a moment. "I'd tell her she's being financially abused." "Exactly." 4 hours later, the evaluation concluded. "Mrs. Rogers," Dr. Winters said, "you're one of the most mentally sharp people I've evaluated this year. Your executive function is excellent. Your memory is better than most people half your age. You show clear insight into your situation, appropriate emotional responses, and sophisticated reasoning skills." She smiled warmly. "There is absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline, dementia, or incompetence." Betty felt tears of relief streaming down her face. "So their claim is baseless?" "Baseless and frankly offensive. I'll be providing a detailed report to the court." Dr. Winters reached across and squeezed Betty's hand. "But I want you to understand something else. What your children are doing to you is a form of abuse. You setting boundaries was the healthiest thing you could have done." Betty wiped her eyes. "Will I ever have a relationship with them again?" "That depends on whether they're capable of respecting you as a person, not as a resource. Some people can change. Some can't." Dr. Winter's expression was kind but honest. But either way, Betty, you deserve peace. The county courthouse was imposing, all marble and echoing footsteps and the weight of justice. Betty arrived with Samuel and Linda. Her navy dress pressed sharp, her hands steady even though her heart was racing. Paula and Travis sat with their attorney, Peter Morrison, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. They wouldn't look at her. Betty was grateful for that. She didn't know what she'd see in their faces, and she wasn't sure she wanted to find out. Judge Patricia Coleman entered, a stern woman in her 60s with iron-gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every excuse in the book and believed none of them. "Mr. Morrison," she said after reviewing the initial documents, "you're petitioning for guardianship of Betty Rogers based on alleged mental incompetence. Please present your case." Morrison stood, all confidence and rehearsed sympathy. "Your Honor, Mrs. Rogers' children are deeply concerned about their mother's recent behavior. She has made erratic financial decisions, cutting off long-standing support to her family without explanation or warning. She has isolated herself socially, exhibited paranoid thinking, accused her loving children of manipulation. Dr. Patterson's letter outlines—" "Dr. Patterson has never met Mrs. Rogers," Judge Coleman interrupted, her voice sharp. "Is that correct?" Morrison faltered. He based his assessment on detailed interviews with her children. "Hearsay. Continue." Betty felt Samuel's hand briefly touch her shoulder in reassurance. "Your Honor," Morrison pressed on, "the children themselves can testify to the concerning behaviors. She has made threats to disinherit them, threats or statements of intent regarding her own estate planning." The judge's eyes were ice. Morrison stumbled over his words. Betty could see Paula whispering urgently to him. "If I may, Your Honor." Samuel stood, his voice calm and authoritative. "We have submitted Dr. Rachel Winter's comprehensive psychiatric evaluation of Mrs. Rogers, conducted last week. Dr. Winters is board certified and has extensive experience in competency evaluations. Her finding is unequivocal. Mrs. Rogers is of completely sound mind." Judge Coleman reviewed Dr. Winters' report, her expression growing colder with each page. "Mr. Morrison, this petition appears to be a transparent attempt by adult children to gain control of their mother's finances because she chose to stop giving them money. Is there any actual evidence of incompetence beyond the fact that she made decisions you and your clients don't like?" Morrison tried to rally. "Your Honor, if we could hear from the children themselves—" "Fine, let's hear from them. Miss Rogers, Mr. Rogers, please approach." Paula and Travis stood. Betty saw Paula's hands shaking. "Miss Rogers," Judge Coleman said coldly, "how much money was your mother giving you monthly?" 1,500. For how long?" "About 5 years. And when she stopped, you filed for guardianship. Is that the sequence of events?" "It's not that simple." Paula's voice rose. "She was always so generous, and then suddenly she just cut us off. She's not thinking clearly." "Or," the judge said icily, "she's thinking more clearly than she has in years. Mr. Rogers, do you have employment?" Travis looked miserable. "Yes, ma'am. Tech support." "Annual income?" "About $58,000. "And your mother was giving you $1,000 per month on top of that?" "I have expenses." "We all do. Continue, Mr. Harrison." Samuel presented Betty's spreadsheet. Judge Coleman's eyebrows rose as she reviewed it. $189,300 in 5 years? She looked at Paula and Travis with undisguised contempt. "Mrs. Rogers created this detailed financial analysis herself using Excel. Does this look like the work of someone with cognitive impairment?" "Your Honor," Paula started. "No, it looks like the work of someone who finally decided to protect herself." Judge Coleman closed the file with a sharp snap. "Petition denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering both petitioners to reimburse Mrs. Rogers' legal fees for defending against this frivolous claim. This court does not look kindly on adult children weaponizing the legal system against their parents out of greed." The gavel struck like thunder. Paula burst into tears. Travis looked stunned. Their attorney was already packing his briefcase, eager to escape. Betty stood on shaking legs, hardly believing it was over. As she walked out, Paula called after her. "Mom! Mom! Wait!" Betty turned. Paula's face was red, mascara running. "How could you do this to us? We're your children." Betty looked at her daughter, really looked at her, and felt a strange calm settle over her. "No," she said quietly. "You're adults who tried to have me declared mentally incompetent so you could steal my money. There's a name for what you are, and it's not children." She walked away and didn't look back. Outside, the January air was cold and clean. Linda hugged her tight. Samuel smiled. "You did it," he said. Betty took a deep breath. For the first time in months, it didn't hurt. 1 week after the trial, Betty was finally settling back into her own home. Linda had insisted she stay for a few days to decompress, but eventually Betty needed her own space, her own bed, her own quiet. She was unpacking groceries when her phone chimed with a Facebook message from an unknown number. "Melissa Carter, Mrs. Rogers, you don't know me. I'm Travis's ex-girlfriend. We need to talk." Betty's heart rate spiked. Was this another attack? Another strategy from Paula and Travis? She stared at the message for a full minute before responding. "About what?" The reply came immediately. "About where your money was really going. Can I call you?" 5 minutes later, Betty's phone rang. "Mrs. Rogers?" The voice was young, nervous. "This is Melissa. I'm sorry to contact you like this, but I thought you should know the truth." "What truth?" Betty asked carefully. "Travis and I dated for 4 months. I broke up with him last week." Melissa took a shaky breath. "He has a gambling addiction. Online poker. Has had it since college, apparently. Every dollar you gave him went straight to covering debts or chasing losses." Betty sat down heavily. "Gambling?" "Yes, ma'am. He'd win sometimes. I saw it happen. And he'd be on top of the world. Then he'd lose big and panic. That's when he'd come to you with emergencies." "The eviction threat? Real, but not because he couldn't afford rent on his salary, because he'd gambled away his rent money trying to win back what he'd lost the week before." Betty's mind raced through the past 5 years. Travis's constant financial crises, his evasiveness, the way he could never quite explain where his money went. "Did Paula know?" she asked. "She knew." Melissa's voice hardened. She was furious about it, actually. Not because she cared about Travis's problem, but because it meant less money available for her. That guardianship thing? Paula thought if they controlled your money directly, Travis couldn't waste it gambling anymore. She'd make sure she got her share. "So it was never about protecting me." "No, ma'am. I'm sorry." Melissa paused. "I tried to get Travis help. I found Gamblers Anonymous meetings, a therapist who specializes in addiction. He refused everything. Said he had it under control, that he just needed one big win to get even. Then when you cut him off," her voice dropped. "He borrowed from loan sharks, Mrs. Rogers. Actual loan sharks. I couldn't watch him destroy himself anymore. I had to leave." Betty felt numb. "I appreciate you telling me this. There's more. I'm sending you screenshots, texts where he admitted the gambling, where he talked about how to get more money from you. I thought, if they try anything else legal, you should have proof." After they hung up, Betty stared at her phone as the screenshots came through. Text after text of Travis admitting his addiction, strategizing ways to ask Betty for money, even joking with Melissa about how his mom was an easy touch. She forwarded everything to Samuel with a note. For the file, just in case. Then she sat in her kitchen and thought about Tom. He'd struggled with alcohol after his own mother died. Betty had watched him fight that demon for 2 years before he finally got sober. She'd gone to Al-Anon meetings, learned about enabling, learned that loving someone didn't mean protecting them from consequences. Travis was his father's son, but Tom had wanted help. Tom had accepted it. Travis hadn't. Maybe he would someday. But Betty couldn't wait around hoping, couldn't keep funding his destruction. She opened her evidence folder and added Melissa's information, not with satisfaction, but with sadness. Her son was sick, but she couldn't save him. Only he could do that. By late February, word had spread through the extended family. Linda, bless her, hadn't been subtle about sharing the truth, not the gossip version, but the facts. The Christmas text, the guardianship petition, the court ruling. Family members took sides. Most of them, once they heard the full story, took Betty's. Her cousin Rachel called one evening. Paula contacted me asking to borrow $3,000. Some story about Emma's orthodontist bill. I said no and told her why. That I knew what she'd done to you. She accused me of being poisoned against her. Rachel laughed bitterly. So I sent her a link to the public court records. She hung up on me. The extended family WhatsApp group got awkward. Someone posted, "Just a reminder that family helps each other." Linda had responded immediately. "And that goes both ways. Betty helped for years. When she needed respect, she got attacked. Family isn't a one-way street." The chat went silent after that. But Betty was building a new life. The grief support group had become her anchor. She went every Thursday night, and slowly, the faces became familiar, then friendly, then dear. Ruth, the 73-year-old who'd shared her own story of financial exploitation, became Betty's closest friend. They had coffee every Tuesday morning at the diner on Prospect Avenue. They went to movies on Thursday nights. Ruth introduced Betty to her son Michael, who helped Betty set up better computer security and taught her about online scams. "My mother talks about you all the time," Michael said one day while installing antivirus software on Betty's laptop. "She says you inspire her." "Me?" Betty laughed. "I'm just trying to figure out my life." "That's what inspires her. You're not just surviving. You're building something new." Betty joined a hiking group that met Saturday mornings at the Cleveland Metro Parks. She discovered she loved the physical challenge, the fresh air, the companionship of people who asked nothing from her but her company. She redecorated Tom's office, turning it into an art studio. Her watercolor paintings weren't masterpieces, but they brought her joy. She painted Lake Erie sunsets, the view from her kitchen window, abstract pieces that somehow captured emotions she couldn't put into words. The community center asked if she'd volunteer to teach computer basics to other seniors. Every Wednesday afternoon, Betty helped people her age navigate email, video calls, online banking. It felt purposeful in a way that writing checks to Paula never had. She and Linda started planning a trip to Ireland for the fall. "You seem happier than I've seen you in years," Linda observed over lunch one day. "I am," Betty realized. "I didn't know how heavy that burden was until I put it down." "Any regrets?" Betty thought about it honestly. "I think about Emma and Lucas every day. That hurts. But the decision itself? No, that was right." In early March, Betty found an envelope in her mailbox. The handwriting was unfamiliar, the postmark local. She opened it carefully, half expecting another legal document. Instead, she found a letter. "Dear Betty, I owe you an apology that's long overdue. I was weak. I let Paula manipulate me into going along with things I knew were wrong. The guardianship petition was unconscionable, and I'm ashamed I didn't speak up. I understand if you can't forgive me. I wouldn't blame you, but I'm writing because Emma and Lucas ask about you constantly. They don't understand why you disappeared from their lives. I've told them the truth, age appropriately, that sometimes adults make mistakes and hurt people they love, and there are consequences. They miss you terribly. They've made you drawings and cards. I'm including them with this letter." Betty's hands shook as she pulled out the children's artwork. Emma had drawn a picture of two figures holding hands under a rainbow. In careful letters, "Me and Grandma, I miss you." Lucas's card was covered in dinosaur stickers. In wobbly crayon, "I love Grandma." Betty pressed the drawings to her chest and cried. Derek's letter continued. "I filed for divorce in January. Paula fought for full custody, but the court sided with joint custody given the circumstances. I have the kids every other week and alternate weekends. If you ever want to see them, I would welcome that. No expectations, no pressure, no Paula. Just you and your grandchildren. They deserve their grandmother back. And honestly, so do I. Not for money or favors, but because you were always kind to me, and I threw that away by not standing up for you. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it." Derek Betty read the letter 3 times. Then she called Samuel. "If I want to see my grandchildren, but only with Derek present, not Paula, is that legally possible?" "If Derek has joint custody and agrees, absolutely. Would you like me to draft a formal arrangement, just to protect everyone?" "Yes, please." "Betty?" Samuel's voice softened. "I'm glad. You deserve this." That night, Betty slept better than she had in months. The park was beautiful in late March. Lake Erie, choppy and gray under cloudy skies, but the trees were budding and crocuses pushed through the cold earth. Betty arrived early, Ruth beside her for moral support. "You okay?" Ruth asked as they sat on a bench overlooking the water. "I haven't seen them in 4 months." Betty twisted her hands in her lap. "What if they hate me? What if Paula's turned them against me completely?" "Children don't hate," Ruth said firmly. "They just love. Give them a chance." Derek's car pulled into the parking lot. Betty's heart hammered as she watched 2 small figures climb out of the back seat. Emma saw her first. "Grandma!" The 10-year-old broke into a run, Lucas close behind. Betty dropped to her knees on the grass, catching them both as they crashed into her. They were crying. She was crying. They were all crying and laughing and holding on like they might never let go. "Why did you go away?" Lucas asked, his face buried in her shoulder. "Oh, baby, I didn't want to." Betty pulled back to look at them both. "I missed you every single day." "Mommy said you didn't want to see us anymore," Emma said, her brown eyes, Tom's eyes, searching Betty's face. Betty chose her words carefully. "That's not true, sweetheart. Grandma and your mom had a disagreement about grown-up things, but I always wanted to see you. Always." "Daddy said you didn't do anything wrong." Emma glanced at Derek, who stood at a distance, giving them space. "Families are complicated sometimes," Betty said. "But what matters is that we're together now, right?" "Right." Lucas squeezed her tighter. They spent 2 hours at the park. Betty pushed Lucas on the swings, the way she used to when he was small enough to need her help. She watched Emma do cartwheels on the grass, applauding each one. They fed ducks at the lake's edge, tossing breadcrumbs while Emma chattered about her loose tooth and Lucas explained in exhaustive detail why Ankylosaurus was the best dinosaur. Normal grandma things. Precious, ordinary, irreplaceable grandma things. During snack time, juice boxes and crackers that Derek had packed, Betty walked over to where he stood watching. "Thank you," she said, "for this. I should have done it months ago." His voice cracked. "I should have stopped Paula from—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Betty, for all of it. You're doing the right thing now. That matters. Paula's furious. She's threatening to take me back to court, saying I'm alienating the children from her." Derek shook his head. "But my lawyer says she doesn't have a case. And honestly, I don't care. The kids need you. They've been asking about you since Christmas." Betty watched Emma show Lucas how to skip stones. "How are they handling the divorce?" "Better than I expected. Kids are resilient." He paused. "And they're relieved, I think. The fighting between me and Paula was getting bad. At least now there's peace, even if we're in 2 houses. And Travis?" Derek's expression darkened. "I heard he's in rehab. 3rd time, according to Paula. She's convinced he'll get better and they'll both come after you again for money." He looked at Betty directly. "I won't let that happen. Whatever you need from me, testimony, documentation, whatever, you have it." Betty touched his arm briefly. "I appreciate that more than you know." When it was time to leave, Emma hugged Betty so tight she could barely breathe. "Can we see you again? Soon?" "Yes, sweetheart, very soon." "Every Saturday," Derek said. "If you want. I have the kids every weekend for the next month." "I'd like that very much." Lucas waved from the car window until they turned the corner and disappeared from sight. Ruth stood beside Betty on the grass. "You did it. You got them back." "Not the way I hoped," Betty said softly, "but maybe the way I needed." 6 months later, Betty's life had transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined that terrible December night when Paula's text had shattered everything. Saturday morning had become sacred. Emma and Lucas arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. Derek dropped them off with a cooler of snacks and picked them up at 3 p.m. Today, they were making Tom's famous chocolate chip cookies, the recipe written in his handwriting on a stained index card. "Your grandfather loved these cookies," Betty said, watching Emma carefully measure flour while Lucas, somewhat less carefully, cracked eggs. "He'd eat 5 in one sitting." "Tell us about Grandpa again?" Emma asked. Betty shared stories, keeping Tom alive for them. His crooked smile, his terrible jokes, the way he'd dance with her in the kitchen when his favorite songs came on the radio. Her refrigerator was covered with proof of her new life. Photos from the hiking group standing triumphant at a summit, the book club ladies laughing over wine, her watercolor class painting en plein air at the botanical gardens. Her calendar was packed. Tuesday, coffee with Linda and Ruth. Wednesday, computer class volunteer work. Thursday, book club. Friday, grief support group. She still went, now to help newcomers. Saturday, grandkids. Sunday, church with Ruth, then brunch. Betty opened her laptop while the cookies baked, checking her finances. Her bank account was healthy, not wealthy, but stable. Growing even. Her retirement accounts had recovered from the hemorrhaging of the past 5 years. Her long-term care insurance was paid up. She'd updated her will with Samuel's help. College trusts for Emma and Lucas, structured so neither parent could access them. A substantial bequest to Linda's children, who called her regularly and genuinely cared. The bulk of the estate to a scholarship fund in Tom's name. Paula and Travis, $1 each, symbolic amounts that ensured they couldn't claim they'd been forgotten. It felt right, fair, final. "Grandma, the timer," Emma called. Betty pulled perfect golden cookies from the oven. They ate 3 each, warm and gooey, and Betty felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. That evening, after Derek had picked up the kids and Betty was enjoying the quiet with a cup of tea, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello?" "Mom?" The voice was hesitant, rough. "It's Travis." Betty's breath caught. She said nothing. I'm in rehab. 90-day program this time, not just 30 days. For the gambling." A pause. "I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you should know." "I'm glad you're getting help, Travis." "I'm sorry." His voice broke. "For all of it. For the lies, for the money, for the guardianship thing. I know you probably can't forgive me, but I needed to say it. You were right about everything. I was sick, and I was using you." Betty closed her eyes. "I forgive you." "You what?" "I forgive you. But Travis, forgiveness doesn't mean going back to how things were. Do you understand that?" "Yeah." He sounded like he was crying. "I know. I'm not asking for money or for things to be okay. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and that you were right. How long have you been clean?" 43 days. 43 days without gambling." "That's good. That's really good, son." Betty meant it. "One day at a time. That's what they say here." A shaky laugh. "Listen, I have to go. Group therapy in 5 minutes. But Mom, thank you. For picking up. For listening. Good luck, Travis. I mean that." After they hung up, Betty sat in the dark living room for a long time. She didn't call him back, didn't send money, didn't rush to visit, but she felt lighter somehow. Maybe Travis would make it this time. Maybe he wouldn't. His journey was his own now, not hers to manage or fix. She'd given him something more valuable than money, consequences. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. Betty's art studio, the converted office that had once been Tom's domain, glowed with late September light. She stood at her easel, working on a watercolor of Lake Erie at sunset. Purple and gold bleeding together, the horizon line uncertain, beautiful. She thought about the question people kept asking, "Do you regret it?" The answer was no, clear and simple. She hadn't lost her children. She'd lost the illusion of what their relationship was. She'd lost the version of herself who believed love meant sacrifice without reciprocity. She'd lost the weight of carrying adults who refused to stand on their own. What had she gained? herself, her self-respect, her peace, her autonomy. Real friendships with people who didn't see her as a wallet. Saturdays with Emma and Lucas, messier and more complicated than before, but also more honest. The knowledge that she could survive disappointing people she loved. Freedom. Paula hadn't spoken to her in 10 months. Maybe she never would. That hurt. It would always hurt. She was Betty's daughter, but she was also an adult who'd tried to steal Betty's agency by declaring her incompetent. Love didn't require her to accept abuse. It never had. Travis was still in rehab, according to Linda. His 4th attempt. Maybe this time would stick. Betty hoped it would. But she wasn't responsible for his recovery. He was. If Betty could tell her past self anything, it would be this. Generosity without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. Your worth isn't measured by what you can give others. It's inherent. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Her phone chimed. A text from Emma. Grandma, can we make cookies again next week? Love you. Betty smiled and typed back. Absolutely, sweetheart. Love you too. She set her phone down and looked around her studio, her space, her art, her life. The window was open, evening breeze carrying the scent of autumn leaves. Outside, a bird sang its last song of the day. Betty picked up her brush and added one final stroke of gold to her painting. Then she stepped back and looked at it, really looked at it. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and that was enough.